Alright, so this video is aimed at those of us with long hamstrings and a strong curve or lordosis in the lumbar spine. There's a lot of reasons why this could be occurring, so I offer this little movement for those of us whose low backs feel really good. There's no reason why you shouldn't forward fold. You just find that there's a lot of tension in the postural muscles here. The erector spinae, maybe QLs are kind of tight, but if you're mid-back, if the back of your waist is just, stuck in neutral or even a little bit extended, this one's for you. Long hamstrings are going to make it a lot easier. So we'll do two things. The first one is pretty strong, and then we'll counter it and release it out. So I'll come down to the floor. I'll do a gentle version and a strong version of the first one. So the gentle version, I'm going to roll back, I'm going to push, my hands can kind of boost my hips up off the ground. And here's why it's handy to have long hamstrings, flexible hamstrings. Because the more I can get my feet back behind me, the easier and more effective, the more counterbalance you have, the more of my weight is back here, the easier this is going to be. So I'm going to plant my hands. I'm going to use those toes. Those toes are really reaching back to slow this path down. So I already feel a nice lengthening through the lumbar. Mental note, you can't see the action, but I'm still lifting pelvic floor. I'm using my abs and I'm sending my hips up and back, so I'm not just dead slouching. It shouldn't feel like powerless slouching on your low back. It's a conscious lengthening of those big, thick muscles across either side of the lumbar for those of us that find it really hard to switch those off. So then I'm going to slowly, my hands are on the floor, I'm going to ooze, and as much as I'm thinking about eventually melting the hips down, my toes are reaching back as I put one vertebrae on the floor at a time. So you can see how long hamstrings is going to help that out. If my knees are bent, so if the hamstrings are shortened and you can get like this far, then when I come back, I just don't have as much counterweight. The more you can send your body back, the better this is going to be, the stronger the adjustment. There's tons of activation in the core. I'm curling my knees into my chest, so I slowly lengthen the lumbar down. Then I'm just going to drop, put the feet on the floor, arch and curl the hips a couple times. So the second variation, the stronger variation, I'm going to grab my feet this time. And notice how my fingers are just going to hook over my toe prints and creep down onto the, hopefully grabbing the big toe joint. And this is going to, now I can pull myself over. So anytime my arms are pulling the limbs, there's a more leverage, so it's going to be a stronger stretch. And again, long hamstrings is going to make this way more available. I'm going to zip the belly. I'm going to boost my hips up, so I'm really rounding through the spine. And then I'm going to take my sweet, sweet time and feel this conversation unravel through the spine. My head is relaxed on the ground. My shoulders are relaxed on the ground. And my hands are containing my feet down towards my head, so that as I take time, nice deep breaths helping to soothe the reaction of the body. So vertebrae disc all the way down. Really juicy little lengthening here of those postural muscles along the lumbar. Nice big lengthening along the hamstrings as well. So I'm going to use my hands to pull my feet as I roll up onto my shoulders. And slowly, my hips are reaching across the room as I lengthen the lumbar down. Again, anything twingy in the back, maybe this is not the pose for you. Then I'm going to bend the knees, put the feet on the floor, and just take a moment. So hips are very flexed. Hip flexors are working quite a lot there, so there's a lot of hip compression there. So I'm going to take a moment and just arch and curl. And this is a great opportunity as we feel, I can feel the conversation echoing in the hip flexors. So I can feel a little grip response in iliacus and in the psoas. You might feel your spine really arc up here. You might feel that strong lordosis return because the hip flexors are so lit up. This is a nice release to bring awareness to the position of your spine and to also help calm this reaction. So I'm going to take my right leg up and I'm just going to hold this leg in place while my other leg, my left leg, slowly inchworms out. Now this is listening, eavesdropping on whispers. I'm eavesdropping on that left leg. I want to keep the lumbar nice and long here, which is part of why I collected this leg in. And if I were to straighten this leg right away without any thought, it'd be likely that my lumbar would pop up off the floor again, right? So I'm going to rewind there for a second. My knee is a little bit bent, and I'm keeping my lumbar long on the floor. This is where you're listening to the whisperers. This is where you're breathing and getting iliacus and psoas to lengthen back down again. And eventually, when it lengthens out and the lumbar, the back of your waist is still on the floor, you have this lovely, it's like a drop of pressure. It's like pouring water on a fire. There's just a soothing and an opening and a spaciousness in that left hip. So demonstrating the same again on the other side. I'm going to take my left knee in to help keep the lumbar on the floor and to help keep the spine from dancing around too much. And my right leg is slowly going to creep out. I'm going to start eavesdropping and listening to the whispers going on in the front of the right hip, especially as I head towards the end of that movement. I'm going to notice my lumbar spine if it tries to pop up off the ground. And rather than trying to force, so rather than doing a crunch, I'm going to try to keep my belly soft. I'm going to breathe and pay attention to this leg and really encourage this deep conversation to soften, 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 so that eventually, as it relaxes out, this is not core work, this is contrasting the core work we did a moment ago. So those two really complement each other, because this one is super strong. I'm flexing my hips so much that I'm curling myself off the floor. And then when we lengthen out, I'm releasing the hip flexors. So the reason why this is so powerful, there's like a 1-2 punch here. First, so let's say this is closed and this is closed. First, I lengthened out the lumbar, then I lengthened out the hip flexors. So for those of us that tend to have anterior tilt, long hamstrings, it's a pattern. There's a lot of people out there with this pattern. Let me know how that suits your body, and we'll see you next time.